Hello everyone, and welcome to this edition of It's All About You for October 2019. Let me introduce all of you to Dan Maloney. This is Dan right here, the owner and CEO of D-Tech, which is housed right here in the Cohen Building. And there's some construction going on, like you can see. This is at the northeast corner of Main and Ray Streets in downtown Urbana. I would also like to welcome at the end here Kevin Garcia. He is a member of the City of Urbana Planning Department. He's a planner too. And finally, we welcome Alice Novak of the University of Illinois Department of Urban Plus Regional Planning. And she's also the chair of the City of Urbana's Historic Preservation Commission. Welcome, you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Hi, Dan. From what I understand, this all started with you. Can you tell us a little bit about how this endeavor began?
Sure. About 3 years ago, I bought this building, and I started planning some renovations. I want to look what the options are, and to renovate an old historic building like this is not a cheap endeavor. So I looked at some of the options for getting historic tax credits, and so I reached out to the State Historic Preservation office, and they took a look at the building, and in that process of them looking at this building, I also got an opportunity to talk to them about setting up a historic district for all of downtown Urbana. And then at that point, Kevin was also part of the meeting, and we looked at both options of just having this building listed individually as well as getting the whole historic district.
You know, that's pretty cool that you actually wanted to do the whole area. That's kind of benevolent of you, actually, you know, instead of yourself. And it's pretty cool. So you went to the city and said, hey, I'd like to do this, and then what happened, Kevin?
Well, we said, yeah, that's a great idea. And we really liked the idea of, like you said, looking at the whole district instead of just looking at an individual building, because there are a lot of buildings downtown that have a lot of historic value. So we thought it was a great idea, and then we really kicked off the process there. Okay,
now I know that Alice comes into the equation. Why? Why did you? I mean, she's part of the one of our commissions, so you knew Alice. I mean, how did that all transpire? Just to our viewers want to know, like, how did that happen? You know?
Well, yeah. So I mean, Alice has been the chair of our preservation commission, I think, since it was formed. So she really. You know her. You know your stuff. She knows her stuff. I was talking to her just as to try and get the nomination form put together, which is a huge undertaking. And we initially thought maybe we'd have a small team, like me, Alice, and a couple other folks, put that nomination together, and it was just a really huge undertaking.
I just guess at one point, I'm just guessing, correct me if I'm wrong, you said, hey, I've got students. I mean, how did that go? Did you say, hey, I'm going to rescue you? I mean, what happened?
We had met as a group of us, Kevin and I and a couple of other people, and we divided up a National Register nomination. And we were all going to try to do it as volunteers, and nothing happened. So I knew that Dan was interested in the 20% tax credit, and the only way to make that happen was to finally get this district designated. So I was looking for a real project for my students. My students have done a lot of surveys for the community. I think we've surveyed over 1,000 buildings so far, which has been a great project, but I just kind of wanted a different experience for both them and me. I gave them the assignment about a year ago in September. And they each had 2 or 4 buildings to document, and then they also had some historical theme to help document as well too. So probably the worst part was editing everything after they were all finished, to make sense of it all. But yeah, it got done that way. So.
Okay, so I know when we sent out the press release, you had, somebody had given me information about the styles of our buildings. I mean, how much did that lend to them going, yes, this is definitely a historical place that could be designated? I mean,
well, we have 3 themes of history that made it significant, and one of those is architecture. So it really was important. And then that's when you get into things that make a difference, like integrity issues, when buildings have been altered too much to be contributing to the district. So that happens in part of the time. And then we also had a commercial theme for all the commercial buildings in the downtown, and also a politics government theme.
Now, did they look at all 3 themes? I mean, is it a thing where you should try to go for as many themes as possible? It'll help your likelihood of being designated, or do they just go, we want to do one theme? I mean, how does that all work?
It could be designated off of just one theme, but I think if we'd only tried to make it eligible for the politics government theme. That wouldn't have been enough when you have all these other buildings around. So you kind of have to decide what your boundaries are, and then within those boundaries, what makes the area significant.
Okay. Now, I know a lot of you have come to Downtown Urbana and you know it. So tell us what parts of Urbana are designated.
So essentially, if you think of Main Street from the courthouse west to where it splits with Springfield, and that old Spanish eclectic Kirby gas station. Now I think it's just an auto repair place, where that's at, and then going as far south as Race and Illinois, so the southwest corner of the whole Lincoln Square site. Well, Lincoln Square was actually already designated several years ago because it's one of the first malls, indoor malls in America. So that's already on the National Register. So the district includes Lincoln Square, but really anything that you think of as being, when you think of downtown Urbana in your head, that's what this encompasses.
Obviously, Dan is doing some renovations here. This was what in the beginning, this building, the Cohen Building?
Well, the last use was as a lawyer's office, okay. So the whole building was used as lawyer offices. But originally, it was the Urbana Banking Company. In the westmost bay is a barber shop, in the center bay, and then this bay here, where the restaurant's going to go, this was a confectionery.
Cool, and it's going to be a restaurant.
Japanese restaurant.
Japanese restaurant, awesome. So, I mean, you guys can tell there's stuff going on here. It's pretty neat. We've got some really neat flooring here and the old cool ceiling. So, are you going to try to preserve some of that, or what is your facade your interior going to look like?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to try to preserve as much as possible. That's also in fitting with the whatever use we have.
Yeah.
So, for example, with the restaurant that's coming in, we're going to preserve this beautiful tin ceiling, so most of this will be exposed. There are a couple aspects of the floor tiling, original floor tiling, that will be exposed. And then, so yeah, we're basically trying to keep as much revealed and stuff that we found is in the renovation process as
And that gives
possible.
you the tax credit? Explain that a little bit.
It's a couple parts to the application even. So for me to get the tax credit, there's a couple parts. The first, and I actually have a consultant that I hired to do that because it is a lot of paperwork, a lot of things that need to be documented. But the bottom line for me is that the state has to review the plans that I'm doing and make sure that there's nothing that's going to take away from the historic value. So what they do is they start with a snapshot in time when I started the renovation,
Yeah.
and they want to make sure anything that was, they saw that was historic at that point in time, I'm not taking away from that. And if there's a couple changes here and there, they just have to approve them. So.
Really neat, though. I mean, it's great to see all this changes happening in Urbana. This designation is obviously going to bring value to the area, I believe. And we've also just got a lot of cool things going on in Urbana. So I want to thank you guys today for coming. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on this October edition of It's All About You.